Hello again. Welcome to NeoUnrealist. Well. House Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows, he went on to the Hill.com's Rising with Crystal Ball and Buck Sexton show yesterday. It was October 3rd, 2018. I'll put a link to the relevant clip in the description below this video, but to summarize what he said was basically this. He said, remember he's seen the unclassified stuff at least. He said there's strong suggestion in the unclassified material he's seen, texts and emails between the various officials in the Department of Justice and FBI, that confidential human sources were taping members of the Trump campaign. He expanded that there are strong suggestions between these various deep staters that, quote, extraordinary measures were used to surveil, was what he said. Now, in case you're not sure what that means, he also went into plainer language later on. He said he believes it was confidential human sources taping people, wearing a wire. Now, keep in mind, he said this before we learned that yesterday, in closed testimony before lawmakers on Capitol Hill, James Baker, he's the former general counsel at the FBI, basically the FBI's top lawyer. He admitted that before the election, in 2016, before the FBI and Department of Justice made their request to the FISA court to get a FISA warrant on Carter Page, that he met with a lawyer from Hillary Clinton and the DNC's law firm, Perkins Coie. You remember Perkins Coie, the law firm that the Hillary Clinton campaign transferred millions of dollars to for the purpose of hiding their involvement in hiring Fusion GPS to be the second firewall between them and the foreign intelligence agent that they were colluding with to generate disparaging, false information about their campaign opponent, Donald Trump, and people involved with the opposing campaign, to get it into the FBI and Department of Justice, to launder it as if it were actual, genuine intelligence, and ultimately have it cross the membrane from intelligence into the legal sphere that ultimately led to the so-called insurance policy of Operation Crossfire Hurricane becoming the Mueller Special Counsel investigation. I wasn't expecting a whole lot from that James Baker testimony. Now, after all, he was part of the deep state, the Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page cabal of co-conspirators. That old crew. But despite my pessimism, though, it seems like that little birdie, at least yesterday, he sung. He sung the congressional investigators a song. And it looks like no one wants to be left holding the bag and to be left without a seat when the merry-go-round stops and the indictments get handed out. And you know what they say about snitching. He who talks first wins. So I don't want to hear any more of this bullshit. We found the collusion in the 2016 election. Trump said he was going to release the redacted documents for Carter Page, the Carter Page FISA warrant, all that stuff, and suddenly he gets phone calls from two close U.S. allies, the UK, Australia, Five Eyes surveillance. Look, let's call it what it is. Christopher Steele, he wasn't some rogue element out there on his own. He took his stuff to Richard Dearlove, yet another so-called former MI6 employee. MI6, in case you've never watched a James Bond movie, it's the UK equivalent of our CIA, the Secret Intelligence Service. Richard Dearlove, he's one of those guys who ran the damn thing. He was the chief. Well, apparently, London is chock full of these former MI6 guys who, they leave the SIS and they hang out their own shingle and go, quote-unquote, private. But it's just a mercenary extension of the government operation. Old spooks collecting big money from large corporations and wealthy whales, doing their private intelligence collection, work and analysis, just so that, they don't have to depend on their pensions, their piddling government pensions, and retire somewhere warm. Like a villa in sunny Spain, instead of spending their golden years in the shivering wet British winters. The UK has just been rocked, at that time, by the Brexit referendum. They were caught completely off guard by the sudden rise of the populist right-wing wave in European countries. They look across the pond, they see this, this garish, boorish casino mogul / reality television personality, Donald Trump, win the Republican nomination. You'd think for 1 minute Theresa May and the British establishment do you think they wanted any part of dealing with a Trump presidency? Come on. They wanted Hillary Clinton. They wanted another establishment figure to deal with. Don't let her being a Tory fool you. The Brits have an establishment in a London swamp as deep and devious as the GOP establishment in the Washington swamp is. To my thinking, Christopher Steele was the convenient patsy for a plausible deniability. A man who was no longer officially employed by the British state, but was completely reliable to the interests of the establishment. He didn't need to be told what to do, because he was a Labour Party guy anyway, and already harbored, a desire to keep Donald Trump out of the White House. Consider Theresa May to be, in this story, she's like Henry II, muttering about Thomas Becket. Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest? Just like in those, all those in Henry II court. They knew without having to be told exactly what he wanted, what the king wanted. No one had to tell Chris Steele what the establishment, what the government saw as in the interest of the London swamp. The fact that you now have the ex-general counsel of the FBI admitting that he met with Hillary Clinton's campaign lawyer before the election, before applying for that warrant on Carter Page, shows that the FBI at the highest level, operationally, they had full awareness that they were engaged in collusion with a domestic political campaign. Hillary Clinton and the DNC and their foreign intelligence lackey, one Christopher Steele, who was all too willing to play the role of Reginald Fitzurse, Hugh de Morville, William de Tracy, Richard the Breton, when they went to that cathedral in Canterbury to confront Thomas Becket. The involvement of other people like Richard Downer, the Australian diplomat based in London. Do you really think some low-level Australian diplomat just out of the blue called George Papadopoulos, some nobody who was just a name on a meaningless list of fake foreign policy advisors to the Trump campaign? You think this rando Australian Foreign Service worker is cold calling some low-level, 28-year-old, unpaid U.S. political campaign advisor to tell him to stop giving negative quotes to the newspapers about a British politician? Stop. So he hears about emails in this conversation over a pint at the pub, and he thinks this is so important that he contacts the Hillary Clinton-aligned State Department in the United States instead of following protocol and passing that information to the Australian Intelligence Service like he's supposed to if he follows protocol. You'd think Stefan Halper, the British-American dual citizen with a long association with the CIA, hell, they paid him a shit ton of money in 2016. This joint British-American asset, suddenly out of the blue, he's approaching Papadopoulos. Joseph Mifsud, this is the best one. You buy this bullshit that he's a Russian agent? The dude reeks of a Western-run intel asset, specifically British. The guy was sitting there in the UK with multiple no-show academic jobs at British universities on opposite sides of the country. No one at those places, they never saw Mifsud. He didn't teach any classes. He spends all his time in London whining and dining foreign intel and diplomatic people. I don't even know if he had an offices there. I mean, this guy, does he sound like an agent of Russia or MI6 to you? You think Vladimir Putin has that kind of pull in the British university system to arrange multiple no-show jobs for an obvious intel asset? 2 + 2 is 4, people. All the names and faces in these people popping up in these human intelligence gathering operations against Trump campaign people, they have either British Foreign Service backgrounds, or in the one case, an Australian Foreign Service background of a guy based in Britain. Now, I'm not saying that President Trump is a sympathetic figure, as that storied Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Becket, but the foreign hand I'm detecting in all this 2016 election meddling is the people that have actual state connections. They speak English in British accents, not Russian. Hillary Clinton's people knew that they couldn't just hand bullshit cooked up by the Sidney Blumenthal and Cody Shearer to the FBI, so they needed to put multiple firewalls between them and the FBI to keep their hands clean. The final firewall had to be someone outside the U.S. political system, to sell it, and Christopher Steele was that guy. Perkins Coie, meeting with James Baker, shows that the FBI knew just where that chain led. You know, just where this bullshit info was actually coming from, and they went with it anyway. That's all for this NeoUnrealist. Like the video, comment, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell to keep up with the new content. Follow links below to Patreon or PayPal if you want to cash up the operation, or just use the tip pledge button if you're watching this on BitChute. Last thing, if you're still around to hear this, I salute your dedication because, while I might like to hear myself talking, this isn't the Avengers or a Thor Ragnarok with the post-credits bullshit. Thanks for watching.